All right. Excellent. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Lee. I'm a retired immigration officer. I worked in fraud detection and national security, primarily in marriage fraud and in uh, business fraud, employment fraud for a number of years while I was in the service. I did a lot of work as a manager, doing ceremonies and granting people benefits as well when I first started. But what I'm focused on now is getting educating people on some of the immigration fraud and some of the dangers of immigration that a lot of U.S. citizens don't know. Um, so I am going to do a recording, and this will be recorded on um, and placed on YouTube. And I have today Dr. Waldmiller with me, who has his story, wants to share his story. So I'll let you just have at it. Tell us about your experience and what occurred.
Thank you for the time,
Sure.
and I appreciate the not only the time, I appreciate you. And
Well,
as we spoke briefly before the recording, your service and everything that you've done. Thank you very
oh,
much.
you're welcome. I appreciate it. Glad to.
Yeah. So my story is probably going to be a bit different than other victims of immigration marriage fraud.
Mhm.
My story goes all the way back to 1995,
Oh my gosh.
where after a divorce from a person suffering with severe mental health, borderline personality disorder issues,
Mhm.
and that was difficult. But 5 years later,
Challenge.
I wound up going to Hong Kong after being introduced through a friend of a friend of a friend of a cousin to a woman from the Philippines, but employed in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
She professed to be a Christian, same beliefs as me, pretty much.
Yep.
Quoted the Bible to me for 5 years and thought things were grand and wonderful. And so I brought her to New York State, where I was living at the time. And a few months later, after courtship, we married. And first couple days were wonderful, but then I noticed something strange was going on. She began to argue with me, throw things, break things,
Mm-hmm.
pushing me, calling me names,
Mm-hmm.
making accusations of things I had no idea where those ideas were coming from,
Mm-hmm.
accusing me of still loving my ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever been married or with a person with untreated borderline personality disorder, you know that's the furthest thing that you want to be in
You want
love
to
with.
do again?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Those that know that diagnosis, that mental health diagnosis, know exactly what I'm talking about. But
I had a
anyway,
friend. I had a friend who was married to his wife was kind of in that genre, and it was rough
mhm,
on him. He had a rough
yes.
time with it. So yeah,
Yes,
for
it
sure.
it it was rough.
Mm-hmm.
So this scammer continued to make accusations, and sometimes she would threaten me and call the police, saying that I was being abusive, and I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And she called the police maybe six, seven, 8 times over the course of the time we were married. Now, I was employed as an addiction therapist locally,
Mm-hmm.
so anytime something came up, uh, lawyers, judges were kind of scratching their heads like, we know Paul.
Yeah.
You know, people at work obviously knew me as a very good therapist. That so I was able to drag that out for a number of years because honestly, I didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the best thing to do, my scammer was from the Philippines and I was a Christian, was to take her back home and to the Philippines, thinking maybe be with her family for a while, and I would be a Christian missionary. And that kind of worked out. But it for her, it didn't get better. She
Mm-hmm.
began to manipulate, cause trouble, do more things, say things to her family
Mm-hmm.
and others that I was abusive there as well. So we came home just shy of 1 year, and all heck broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
Soon after, she filed for divorce. In between, tried counseling. I dragged her to all sorts of Christian therapists, pastors,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what was going on. And don't yell at me for expressing my faith, but one day, after crying out to God, I just I didn't know what was going on, and I believed I was led to look up Filipino scams, just those words on the internet, and I did. I looked it up, and I finally started finding websites
Mhm.
back in 2008 loaded with Filipina immigration marriage scams or
Yeah.
fraudsters.
Mhm.
Loaded, just loaded, and I couldn't believe it. So I found one or several websites that spoke about how her kind of scam, it's called a Filipina dump truck scam.
Mhm.
That's the name of the scam that she was doing.
Mhm.
What she was doing was trying to entice me to beat her, hit her, find any way that I could, or she could get me to hit her and beat her so that she could claim that she was being abused,
Yes.
physically abused.
Yes.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't touch her.
Mhm.
So, in any case, she had police reports, even though they said nothing happened, no one was arrested. She filed for divorce and said, well, there must be something going on. She found some really good, manipulative, $100 billion per year American Bar Association, filthy lawyers, family court lawyers, all women who hated men. And there's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
They made all these false accusations that I was an abuser, I was beating her,
Mhm.
and it couldn't be further from the fact.
Yeah.
And after spending $18,000
Mhm.
for lawyers, I ran out of money and I became,
Hold up. You froze for just a minute,
well,
so you're back now.
sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I became, after spending $18,000 on attorney fees, and now this is back in 2000, and now this is 2009,
Yeah.
with the world economic financial crash,
Yeah.
and nobody had money. I lost my job. Um, I was laid off. And so, anyways, when I became a pro se litigant,
Mhm.
fortunately, because of the first divorce, I was used to becoming a pro se litigant
Mhm.
and family court and understanding the ins and outs. And what also helped me was while I was employed as an addiction counselor, I had experience setting up, if you will, instituting
Mhm.
alternative to incarceration programs,
Mhm.
which maybe you've heard of drug courts,
Yeah.
something, yeah, DWI, AI court,
Yes.
so on and so forth. I even helped locally with a domestic violence court.
Mhm.
I was called upon to help establish that. So I knew all the ins and outs of where the money went, who the money went to. And so when I started to bring this stuff up, the judges and the lawyers all started getting really nervous.
Mhm.
So I was arrested for non-payment of, or not following a court order and not paying maintenance. I had no money. I was literally homeless. I was given living in an empty building
Mhm.
provided by a church
Mhm.
where I was youth pastor. And in any case, they had me arrested for those things, and I was appointed a lawyer who, fortunately, I knew.
Mhm.
And he helped me, and I submitted some supplemental affidavits and so on my own to say, hey, this is what's going on. Well, seven judges later, five courts later, because the judges in the area either knew me
Yeah.
or they wanted to have nothing to do with this mess.
Yeah.
I wound up being standing in front of a lawyer or a judge, excuse me, in the town of Darien, New York. Well, long story short, charges were dropped. They were dismissed against me.
Mhm.
They were just dropped. It didn't even go to a pre-trial hearing. It just after uh, two hearings before the pretrial hearing, it was dropped.
Mhm.
And it made that made the judges and the lawyers that were angry at me for exposing them for stealing VAWA, Violence Against Women Act money, and federal Title IV D&E tax funds,
Yeah.
very angry. So they sent a city of Batavia, New York police officer that threatened to kill me.
Mm.
And this is all documented
Yeah.
and with letters and documents on my website, corruptgenocide.com, if anybody wants to see any of this. Yeah, again.
Well, and I'll back some of this up. I did this again for years, and I will tell you, as an officer, you get these VAWA cases that they come before you. All the VAWAs are done in Vermont, so people understand that the initial filing and the paperwork is done in Vermont. But once the VAWA is granted, their adjustment comes down into the local offices, or used to. They may change that and I will tell you that 90%, 90% of the VAWA cases that I saw were highly suspicious. It was almost ridiculous. The what you need to prove VAWA is nothing. You need someone to say that he yelled at me, he cussed me out, he called me names, he told me he was going to send me back to his country, any of those things, and a police report. The police report doesn't even have to be valid. It just has to be they went to the police and they said, hey, the third one is they need to go to a counselor. And I know you're a counselor, but I have real suspicions of counselors because these primarily ladies, but men too, would go
Mhm.
to a counselor one time for one meeting. And they
Mhm.
knew the buzzwords. Hey, I can't sleep at night. He's yelling at me. He scared me. I
Sure.
think PTSD. And after
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
counseling session, counselors will say, yeah, she's suffering from PTSD or she's clearly been
Sure.
traumatized by this. You met this lady and talked to her for 45 minutes and she knows, or this man, you don't think they know how to Google domestic violence symptoms and come into your
Sure.
office and do that?
Well, if I may,
Yes.
for years,
Mhm.
for decades,
Yes.
and it's not like it's a big secret in family court
Yep.
and other courts and judges. All bar members know this, especially if you take your one course in 4 hours in family law, you know this. Lawyers teach women how to lie
Yes.
about domestic violence. They teach them the key words.
Yes, they do.
So and even there's police. Now to the uh and I've spoken on this, I've shared about this. I'm blessed because I'm part of a licensing Christian licensing organization. I'm on the board. As a matter of fact, I'm vice president.
Mhm.
And by the grace of God. But in any case, here's the thing. And again, I'm not trying to force anyone to believe as I do, but one should always know there's a huge difference in counseling approach between secular counselors
Mhm.
and Christian counselors.
Yep.
Now, a Christian counselor can be a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Same with secular counselors. I mean, there's all different brands, if you will.
Mhm.
But the general public has no idea that the group of counselors that I belong to,
Mhm.
we are thorough in
Yeah.
investigating claims of abuse or anything else
Yeah.
because we see human beings,
Mhm.
innocent human beings, as being as sacred, not garbage,
Yeah.
that to be thrown away for a few billable hours.
Yeah.
And that's important for anyone. Anyone who's watching your video with me right now, if they're in a place, and please give me a second, if they're in a place where they need counseling or they need to get the truth out, they
Yeah.
should find some counselor who will do more than like what you shared,
Yeah.
just like a 45 minute and say, oh yeah, PTSD. Most most folks that are not educated as a therapist have no idea that there are exams, there are tests
Yeah.
that are given to actually verify if someone is to be diagnosed with PTSD, borderline, or something else. It's not just
Anything else? Yeah.
out of your head. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I will, yeah, and I know, well, we know that, and we know that even with the agency. But the way
Mhm,
the law works is we can't say, we're not counselors, we're not psychologists, we're not medical doctors, even
sure.
though we can stand in front of you and go, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense because we're rational human beings.
Mhm,
Uh, it doesn't matter. And just, and I always share this because, I wrote a book about some of this, and I wrote about some of the VAWA things that I ran into, and I gave the most outrageous one where I had a man who was, now he was not a good guy. There's no question about that. He had drug issues, but the woman he married accused him of abusing her. And I went back and showed that every instance where she said that he was abusing her, he was in prison in California, and she
mhm,
was living in Atlanta, Georgia.
mhm,
And they still granted her the VAWA. But I'm like, how did she's not, they're not even in the same state, let alone he's in prison. He couldn't have possibly slapped her face and knocked a pie out of her hand. It's
mhm.
physically not possible. So,
Sure.
but then again, she still got a counselor to say that she'd gone through this. Uh, so you do see that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so some of the things that I think that you're expressing is in your, I know it's been some time, but she's ran you financially through the ringer. It sounds
Mhm.
like, and then emotionally, emotionally, what did that do to you emotionally? What was that like?
Well, it was difficult and it's still difficult
Yes,
today
I see you.
because our marriage, as I shared earlier, was dragged out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we had three children together.
Hmm.
Two planned. The last one was not planned.
Yeah.
I love all three, but all three are suffering parental alienation. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're familiar with
I'm
that.
very familiar with that. Yes.
Yes. And I was told by Tracy Bannister the very last time I was in court.
Mhm.
This is New York State. The very last time over this whole issue, which court was 3 years,
Yeah.
going in and out of court for 3 years. The judge said to me, and she was so angry because I wasn't put in jail. I was arrested, charges dropped. I was leading to this earlier. She said, Reverend Waldmiller, I had not achieved my doctorate degree yet. Reverend Waldmiller, you are no longer allowed to be with your children because of your biblical Christian beliefs.
Mhm.
Now, you would think that should get me automatic justice
Mhm.
somewhere, federal court somewhere.
Yeah.
No, the
No.
pressure was on. I was forced out of the country for 2 years.
Mhm.
My family court lawyer told me, said, Paul, get out of the country, stay out of the country, because if you come back, if I can find you, you'll be found in a dark hole someplace.
Yeah.
And I was on loudspeaker in the Philippines at the time when he was telling me this, and
Mhm.
my wife overheard it,
Mhm.
and my brother-in-law heard it too. We all heard it,
Yeah.
and he told my sister the same thing,
Mhm.
and she wrote an affidavit. And I wrote I made a complaint to the FBI. You can find it on the website, the green
Mhm.
certified mail card with a signature from somebody in the FBI that they received it. But I did not hear one word from them, not a phone call,
Yeah.
not a letter that they even received my complaint, nothing.
Yeah.
And as far as emotional toll, I think of and I pray for my children every day because it's nearly 20 years
Yeah.
since I've been able to speak with my children.
Oh,
It's not that I didn't try. I sent letters, I sent cards,
yeah.
but no reply from them. And I know that they were prevented from seeing them.
Yeah.
Now this is part of a ploy that's allowed from the $100 billion per year family law uh, industry. Now,
They get their, the court, what people understand is the family courts get their money primarily through fathers paying child support. they get a cut
Yeah.
of all that
Federal
money. They get a
credit for
huge cut.
D&E fees. Correct.
Yeah, they get a huge cut of that money. So they have an enormous incentive to make sure that whoever makes money is paying the court first, and
Yeah.
then the mom gets some of the money. And
Uh,
then the mom gets the money, and then maybe the kids get some of it.
I'm sorry, for every $1 that's owed by a non-custodial parent,
Mhm.
for $1 owed, the state, whatever state, and all 50 states are included,
Yeah.
receives depending on which state, between $3 to $5 from the federal government.
Mhm.
That's through HHS.
That's
Now
crazy.
think about it.
Yeah.
If I owe $1, the state of New York, right,
Mhm.
will receive between $3 to $5 for that
Yeah.
$1 owed. Now I'm told that I owe because I've been unemployed the whole time. They destroyed my life.
Yeah.
I'm unemployable. No one will touch me with a death threat.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody at all. I have tried, I've applied. I owe over $250,000 in child support. That I've tried 3 different times going into family court over the years, over the
Yeah.
decades, to get it modified. They
Yeah.
won't do it.
Yeah.
They just won't do it.
No, because
They
it's they
they
still they
want
still get their $3.
yes.
Regardless of whether you pay anything or not, they get their $3.
And it's and I am not the only one this is occurring
Oh, I
to.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
There are, and it's not just immigration marriage fraudsters,
Yeah.
but there's millions of women and men that are doing this to their ex-spouses every day.
Oh no,
So
but even in the thing is that it's blooming now too with immigration, because now the 864, the I-864, the affidavit of support,
yes.
most people don't realize today is you sign that I-864 affidavit of support and he or she accuses you of battery or abuse,
Hmm.
separates from you. Even if they don't, if you just file an 864, they can
Hmm.
now sue you and
Yes.
you have to pay them. You have
Yes.
to pay them sometimes $2,000 a month, and
Or
that
more.
for the rest of your life or their life,
Rest of your life. Yes.
unless they decide to go to work. There's a the famous story that I remember when I was in of the lady who she ended up getting $30,000 a month,
Yeah. Sure.
$30,000 a month.
Believe it. Yeah. So
At
it's a
18 because of the 864 affidavit of
yeah.
support. And,
Yeah.
and I mean,
I've heard.
you and I may not have to pay that much, but I know people that are paying $2,000 a month and they don't make
Sure.
$60,000 a year, but
Right.
they've got to maintain that other person above the poverty line. And if they have children, you got
Mhm.
to be above the poverty line. That's the
Right. Right. And it's unfortunate.
yeah.
And what will the courts do? Now, I know SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, over the decades,
Yeah.
have not been friendly to litigants looking to receive relief from the family law section. And
Yeah.
I want to make this clear. I don't hate lawyers.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I have a friend who's a judge.
Yeah.
I have friends that are attorneys. I don't hate them,
Yeah.
but I find most of them are crooked. They're liars. They have blood on their hands. Not all, but most do. And
I've worked with the legal field for, forever, and I've
mhm,
worked with a lot of lawyers, and I've known some that are very good, but
yes.
they're human beings, and they have an incentive, like, and institutions have the same incentive
Mhm,
when money is involved.
yes.
How do I get more?
Yeah.
Everyone, you, me, my neighbor, my wife, my kids are all thinking about how do they get more money. Well,
Mhm,
how do you think that stops with you? Institutions, attorneys, the courts are all thinking the same thing. How do we get more money?
yeah.
And they're never going to cut their own money off. Like I would never be happy if you came and took some of my money away from me.
Sure.
Well, neither would any institution or any attorney. So there is a self-interest thing in there that's dangerous. Self-interest is good, but it also has a dangerous side to it too, that you've got to temper it and always look at it from
Yeah.
that side. So I can see the emotion. I want people to understand that you're not the only person that this is. I've
Mm,
seen this over and over.
yes. Oh,
Men especially are victims of this, and we
yeah.
have to view them as victims of this.
Mm,
There's a thing if a woman goes through divorce and she's abusive, even if she's abusive, she's going to get help through the courts. She's even got places to go for women's shelters.
mm,
Men who have been abused and are ran through the courts, they have a place they can go to, and it's called jail.
yeah,
You
pretty
know,
much.
I
Yeah.
mean that's it. It does work that way. Uh,
Yeah.
but in the immigration system, which is what we really are focused on, it's
Mm,
really bad. For, and it's getting worse because
yes.
now more and more immigrants understand the VAWA program. Everybody's filing for it now. It's
Mm,
just happening left and right.
mhm.
Uh, and now attorneys are suing people for the 864 affidavit support. And there's attorneys now that only deal with the I-864 affidavit of support and helping
Mm,
immigrants sue their U.S. spouses for money. That's their whole purpose. So
yeah. And not to continue complaining, as I shared with you before the broadcast here, I've been to Congress twice,
yeah,
and not once, but twice,
yeah,
and not one Republican or Democrat
yeah,
member of Congress, not the Senate, not the House, no one would help.
yeah,
My wife, my real wife,
yeah,
is from the Philippines.
yeah,
She went with me on the second trip to Congress, and we went from office to office, and she started crying.
yeah.
She was so brokenhearted. She was so discouraged because of the answers that I was being given.
Mhm.
In fact, I remember going to a senator's office,
Mhm.
and they were kind. One to us, one was a Filipino American, like my wife, a Filipino, and she spoke to him in Tagalog. Fortunately, I speak some Tagalog and a couple other dialects.
Yeah,
And she was begging him, please help my husband. It's very bad for him. You don't understand.
yeah,
He can't work. He has no job. No
yeah.
one will hire him. He has a death threat against him.
Mhm.
Nothing. Oh, you maybe if you go to a Republican senator, they can help you. We just can't help you.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's
you
yeah,
know, but that's our
that's
whole entire government is engulfed in the love for what the love for money. How's that?
that's it. Yep, it is. It's the yeah,
Mm,
it's the thing that we worship the most, I think. So that's it.
yeah.
So well,
Oh.
how do you did you end up getting a divorce? Did you end
Oh
you
yeah,
divorce?
she won her divorce. I
And
was given nothing. She was given my house. It was my house. She
yeah,
was given my children. She was given my house. She was given all the marital property, all my personal property. Things from my childhood. Maybe it's all in the garbage now, or it got sent over to the Philippines. I have no idea. She's smiling and laughing during the hearings in family court
yeah,
afterwards, trying to get my child support modified. She's just laughing, having a good time because she knew she had everything.
yeah,
They hated me. They didn't care. They were going to destroy me no matter what. And that's what happens to all of us who are victims of immigration marriage fraud. We have no friends. We have one another as victims, but we have no friends in the government, not the federal government, not the state, not the counties, not the local, not the police, not law enforcement. Some will feel sorry for us.
yeah.
They'll have, there's some empathy there, but
Mhm.
they won't do anything for us to
Yeah,
help us.
yeah.
None of them.
No, well, because one of the things, the VAWA side of it and all of that, and even the divorce courts are, you know, the funny thing is, if you get angry because of the way you're being treated, then they treat it as an see what he's like.
Sure,
But
sure,
we're emotional too. I mean, if you
sure.
put enough pressure and you put enough
Yeah.
crap on us, we're going to fight
Mm,
back because that's what human beings do. And especially
sure.
when you have no one who you don't feel like you have any recourse and no one's listening.
Mm,
and they're just trying to get you. And if you get angry, then they go, "Ah, see, we were right." No, we have a right to be angry, and they have to
Sure.
understand that. And you have a right to be frustrated, uh, and you will lash out at some point, emotionally,
Yeah.
verbally, because you just are being manipulated and mistreated, and they don't see that. And as a man, you're not allowed to be, which it really
Yeah.
is irritating, and you're not,
Well,
you know,
yeah. Not to start a whole new what I call a rabbit trail
yeah, we don't, yeah, but
discussion, but yeah, a good lawyer, a good family law lawyer will tell you, look, Paul, using my name. I know you're angry. I know you're frustrated, but this is how the system works. It's not right. It's not fair. But if you voice your opinion, if you look at the judge with disdain, if you come across harsh or angry, the judge will take it out on you.
that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So just remain calm. It's not fair, but listen to me. You know, good, like I said, there are some good lawyers out there,
Yep.
and they will be totally honest with you. They'll
Yep.
say, look, this is if you want, I had a lawyer tell me, if you're looking for justice, you will never find it in a court. You will not.
It
I mean,
doesn't exist.
he was being fair.
No, it's been
And
true. Yeah.
one of the two lawyers that I
Yep.
shared with you about before the recording, before, today. So, they're out there.
Yeah.
You're not going to get justice.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I've known women, plenty of women, who
Mm.
are also victims of immigration marriage fraud.
Oh, absolutely. I know a lot more of those. There's a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
A
And
lot.
so they suffer too.
Yeah.
And they deserve help too. And I know that there's a few out there that have been really gung ho over the years.
Yeah.
One I mentioned to you, she's in New Jersey. I think she's still there.
Yeah.
She was married to a scammer, immigration marriage scammer, a guy from Scandinavia.
Hmm.
And he never got deported either,
Yeah.
but he would stalk her, and she has actually an order of protection from the state of New Jersey against the scammer because the federal government wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's how crazy it is. Now, good for her that she's female.
Yeah.
Okay, because if it was a male, they're probably not going to do much for you. That is changing a little bit over the decades.
Yeah.
The family courts are becoming a little bit more dad and man friendly, a little bit,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
Yeah.
But as far as immigration marriage fraud, as you alluded to earlier, it's getting worse. There
It's,
are over 4 million American immigration marriage fraud victims, over
yeah.
4 million.
Yes.
In 2018, Donald Trump, who's running for president, he said, yeah, come on, I'm getting letters from many people who are victims. Come on, speak to my White House staff about what's going on. But unfortunately, after that meeting, Donald Trump made the executive decision not to enforce current immigration law.
Yeah.
He decided not to.
Yeah.
And as I also shared with you before, the recording, I had one young man, I call him young, I'm over 60. He
Yeah.
was only 32 years old.
Mhm.
He was a victim, and he took a gun right up the road from me. He took a gun and he shot himself, killed himself, suicide. It's sad. It's very sad. And a lot of trouble for people could be helped.
Yeah.
If Donald Trump, if you're a Kamala Harris fan, God bless you, whatever. I'm just saying, if Donald Trump wins, uh, if he's going to do the mass deportation thing as he's talking about,
Mhm.
the largest in U.S. history, he must include these immigration marriage fraudsters.
Yeah.
He must do it
Yeah.
because the
Well,
the
you've got to have some pushback, and you've got to change the laws to some degree. And I'm not going to blame Trump probably because I was in with Trump.
Mhm.
What I would tell you is that now there was some of that, and we are a little bit off topic, but I think it's important as but not that far off. Um, you got to remember that there's a group of people that works for the federal government that
Mhm.
are put in those places by administrations.
Hmm.
And one of the things I wanted to let people know is that before Barack Obama left office, he took a bunch of attorneys that were immigration attorneys outside in on the other side. They were all immigrant supporters, and
Hmm.
he embedded them into the immigration system.
Yeah.
Over 1,000, I think, was the number. He
Hmm.
flooded the immigration system. He put those in there as GSs, that's general service people. And
Hmm.
once they were in place, it would take an act of God to get them out. And so he had set the system in place by putting all these people in there. And he did this throughout the government too. Leftist, I'm sorry to use the term leftist, but these real progressive attorneys to the
Hmm.
left throughout the whole government. And he put them
Hmm.
in as GSs, which, that general service, man, that's what I was. I used to say all the time, you virtually can't get rid of me. I do my job. As long as I do my job to the
Like the
minimum,
IRS.
yeah, like the IRS. Uh, and a lot of people, I worked with a lot of people who knew that they did nothing.
Hmm.
Just to give you an idea, Donald Trump had an attorney out in Arizona, I think it was Arizona or New Mexico, who was just
Hmm.
bad, extremely progressive, wasn't going to prosecute anything. And he had people put her in a corner basically and say she's just not going to get to do this job anymore. Uh,
Hmm.
And so he shuffled her somewhere so she couldn't be as much of a problem. And she
Hmm.
sued the government and won, and they had to put her right back in there so she could do what she was doing before. Uh,
Hmm.
and I mean, that's just an anecdotal example, but it was very true. The lawyers that I worked with in Atlanta on the immigration side,
Hmm.
they were put in there the same way. None of them wanted to enforce immigration. The people who were put in to the AUSA's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, same,
Hmm.
they were all put in there by Obama and people like that. They were new and fresh. They wouldn't prosecute anyone.
Hmm.
And then the final one was when Trump was in office, and we're still recording, but the people just need to know this is all of the SACs, the people who ran the Homeland Security investigation offices, the guys in charge,
Hmm.
every one of them signed a letter saying that they didn't want to do immigration law. Every
Hmm.
one of them. They all put every SAC in the country didn't want to have anything to do with immigration,
Hmm.
which so you understand is that's that's the immigration enforcement side. They
Hmm.
don't even want to do the job because they had been appointed by other presidents and they didn't want to do it. They were that disappointed me in Trump because if I'd have been Trump, I'd have fired every one of them. I said, "You're
Hmm.
you're done today. You're gone." But I mean, that's a side note. So uh, I appreciate you telling me your story. I hope you're doing better. I hope that in some way you can get some amends and some place with your children. I think that's a tragedy. That's just very sad. To me, that's the worst thing in the world. And I hate that it happened to you. But I want people to understand that your story is not unique.
Hmm.
And it is unique to you. But I know a lot of men, primarily men. I am seeing more and more women that are running through this too. A lot of women going through this now.
Yeah.
But it's happening to both men and women more and more. And it's destructive. It's just horrible. And there's no defense for Americans in this. I think that's it. And I was going to end with this just to make sure I am going to place this on YouTube for educational purposes, and it is just for the views expressed are not mine. It's just for educational purposes, and I just want to make sure you're okay with me placing it on YouTube for people to see. I would appreciate.
Absolutely. I will be sharing that whenever you place it on YouTube.
I sure will. I'll do that. Do you have anything else you want to add to it before we cut off, or is there something else you need to say?
No, I think that's it. I just, I believe my God, anyways, put me in a place where I can help others, and that's what I've been doing for many years. And if there's others struggling, they can reach out to me and ppwaldmiller@gmail.com.
You know what? I'm going to stop the recording. I appreciate it. Yeah, and then we definitely want people to know that. But I'm going to stop recording because I'm going to pick your brain a little bit longer for just a second. Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.